You know, if you don't remember a thing that I say this morning, in fact, I had a script, but I don't need a script to address this budget. I'm going to leave some of the details to Melissa in a little while, the raw numbers, but I'm going to certainly speak to the framework of the 2025 budget. But if you don't remember anything else I say this morning, I want you to take this away because it's accurate and probably refutes a lot of what I heard in the press this morning. You know, it's kind of hard to get dressed when you're the mayor and you're hearing, it's going to happen this way, it's going to happen this way. I just wish occasionally people just ask me, because this budget will not raise your taxes. The 2025 budget will not raise your taxes, and it will not reduce services. In fact, I'm going to document in a moment, it's improving services. So I want everyone also to remember that when I was sworn in at 12:01 on January 1st, that we were $160 million short of necessary revenue, short of what the city brings in versus the responsibility to Houstonians for their services and their public safety. $160 million shortfall, which I inherited, my administration. You say, well, how are we introducing a budget this morning that doesn't raise revenue? It's because we're going to use the ARPA monies left in the general fund. In 2022, the City of Houston got $462.01 million. I don't think the federal government intended it to be for one-time expenses. It was to play catch-up with your infrastructure and your future. But the previous administration has spent ARPA money to balance the books, and that's what I inherited on January 1. This budget will reflect my commitment to the people of Houston when I was a candidate. My highest priority is public safety. The budget places huge attention on public safety. Of the $3 billion that we're going to spend in general funds, 68% of it goes for public safety, fire and police. Out of the total budget of $6.7 billion, 7% being increased primarily for salaries and maintenance. But the budget addresses my commitments of public safety, infrastructure, and city finances. So let me walk you through how we get to a budget that I think is responsible and protects our city employees and Houstonians. First of all, the improvement in city services since we've been here. I've been here 5 months, and I wasn't prepared to raise taxes or cut services in the short 5 months that I've been here. If we could possibly do it a different way, working with my team, working with Melissa, getting the experience from my council members. We've gotten better since January. Morale is up. We have a water plan that is reducing the calls to 311. Response time to Houstonians has improved. Solid waste is picking up garbage and recycling on the same day, first time in several years. The permitting center is doing a turnaround on permits in better time frame. You might say, for example, how is solid waste doing better and improved service? And we haven't raised taxes, we haven't dealt with a garbage fee. It's because people are excited to work for the city of Houston. They're recruiting family members, they're recruiting their neighbors. The vacancy rate when I took office in solid waste was 27% vacancy. That's the reason sometimes it would take 2 weeks or more for people to get their recycling picked up. Today it's a 6% vacancy. They're working hard. Friday morning I'll be at their shop at 6 o'clock in the morning to let them know, first of all, that we're in the middle of a negotiation with city employees, which we won't forget. They're the ones that allow us to meet here today. So we're more efficient, we've improved morale, the public notices it, and then the home run since I took office is collaboration. I could spend the rest of the day talking about the partnership we've established with county government. 3 commissioners have told me they will share the cost of city services because we represent the same people in their precinct. Briones helping us with the multi-service center. Going to build a public facility in Memorial Park that will service county and city employees. Adrian Garcia, longtime friend and colleague, is assisting us in his precinct. And Tom Ramsey, talking about working and collaborating, has told me that he will share the cost of roads and bridges in his precinct 50-50. So that's how we're going to go forward in 25 without raising taxes. We're going to do more collaboration. We're going to look for efficiencies. Let me expand on that collaboration. The city was going to spend $11 million when I was sworn in, relocating the Montrose Library. It currently sits in an iconic historical building that belongs to St. Thomas. A deal had been cut that few knew about to move the Montrose Library over on Westheimer, very close to adult entertainment, on the second story, third story of a commercial building, behind the hamburger joint. When I saw it, I said, no, not on my watch. The TERS is going to spend $11 million redoing the site on Montrose. The commercial building, we're talking a legacy clinic, about a drive-through pharmacy, or something that might be more suitable for that location. The Memorial City TERS is going to build us a new fire station to replace the worn-out one on Gessner and I-10. Metro, we broke ground the other day at Westheimer. They're going to assist us in our streets. TxDOT has informed us they have proceeds to help us. We're going to do a beautification in Houston. You know, if you drive around Houston, our freeways and many of our roads have not been maintained from an appearance. We want people to know we're proud of the city of Houston. And of course, the land office. Johnny Mata, when he was here a couple of weeks ago talking about a leader in our community, said it was historic to have a statewide Republican official appear at Houston City Council. We're going to get additional proceeds from HUD through the land office. So you can see things are in place to get through 2025 without raising taxes, through efficiencies and collaboration. But let me also tell you about the challenges. We have a great city, great people, but we have serious challenges. And I talked about the financial condition during the campaign. I actually said during the campaign we didn't know the true state of the city's finances. And we're still learning on a daily basis where we could have savings, efficiencies. We're actually eliminating waste as I stand here and talk to you. But we have a lot to do. You know, the previous mayor at the Horseshoe, I'm watching TV as a candidate, says that the sanitation department and the costs are unsustainable. But I'm going to leave that to the next mayor. Okay, we accept that responsibility. We have a lot to do. What I would ask my colleagues to help use 2025 as a pathway to 2026. We're going to put everything on the table, except probably Pollard's parking meter time extension, but we'll put that up there if he wants. Everything's on the table. We're going to listen to Houstonians. We're going to see where the cost savings have gotten us. And then we're going to make tough decisions. We have no choice. Public safety being number one. We're going to give the police officers a new contract in a year. We rely upon our police officers. Our firefighters, let me expound on the firefighters a moment. When I got sworn in on New Year's Eve, as I've mentioned, we were $160 million short of needed revenue. It was being covered by ARPA. So if you've never heard of a firefighter contract, I want you to realize, and I want the press to repeat, we had a $160 million shortfall in January. We're covering that with the last of the ARPA funds. We're using $187 million, the last of the ARPA funds, which we got in 2022, to balance this year's books. The firefighters were scheduled to go to trial in March. The Houston Partnership and other advisors was saying it was going to be $800 over $1 billion to settle just on the back pay. Courts have been very favorable across the state to the public employees. Through tough negotiations, give and take, mediation, it was decided $650 million was the proper amount, looking out for the firefighters and the taxpayers of Houston. Some have politicized it. Some run it up as high as they can to scare the public, act like all of a sudden they're fiscal conservatives. The truth and the facts are that this had been going on for 8 years. So if you add up the arrears over 8 years and what you've got to pay in the next 5 years with a contract, it's a big number. It would be a big number for the police department, public works, health, or parks. 8 years in the past, 5 years forward. We're very fortunate to get that agreement, and it is a shame that it's been politicized. Actually condemned the morning after firefighters were saving people in Kingwood. I don't have time for politics when we're writing a budget or play games. There's a time to campaign and there's a time to go to work. The time to work is before us. I'm going to ask Melissa in a minute to go over the raw numbers. I think I have given you an accurate portrayal of where the city of Houston finds itself. 2025 is covered. And let me also add this. As we go forward and put everything on the table, we're going to look for pools of money. I'm working with the state leadership as I talk. There is a real strong possibility that Austin is going to give us additional resources, but we need sustainable funding, no one-time ARPA. We need to look for, which I did last session with the entertainment district, hotel occupancy tax, 3 miles in every direction from George Brown, $3 billion over the next 30 years. What if we did that 10 miles in every direction from George Brown? Be money to fix our infrastructure, which so has badly been neglected. It would free up money for our personnel. You know, experience matters. I've been on Senate Finance for years. In 2011, we were $10 billion short. You make tough decisions. You don't politicize it. And one thing for certain with this budget is the transparency. When has anybody ever told Houston how underfunded we've operated? Going back several mayors, kicking the can down the road, which I campaigned against, selling city properties to fund city government ongoing operations. So those days are over. I look forward to asking, you're asking me questions. I'm going to let Melissa come up. By the way, if you'll look at the chart, we're growing less in 25 than we have the last 4 years. We're being fiscally responsible. And like I said when I started, if you don't remember anything else, the budget does not raise property taxes. It builds toward a sustainable and beyond path to 2026. With that said, I look forward to answering your questions. I ran to make a difference. I don't have time not to fix things. I inherited a mess on many fronts, and it's time to go to work. Melissa, will you come and give us some raw data that will support this fine budget? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I want to piggyback on the mayor's comments. I know he gave me a compliment, but it really couldn't have been done without all the dedicated employees in the finance department. I know a lot of them are here today. They put in the long hours, the nights, the weekends, and then also our partners at the departments, all the city departments. It's really been a collaborative effort, so thank you all. So for the FY25 proposed budget, the proposed budget for all funds, like the mayor mentioned, is $6.7 billion, which is an increase of $442 million or 7% compared to the FY24 current budget. For the general fund budget specifically, as part of that $6.7 billion, the general fund budget is $3 billion, and that reflects an increase of about 2.1%, as the graphic shows, from the FY24 current budget. That increase is primarily attributable to pay increases of 3.5% for the police, which is the final year of the existing contract, and like the mayor mentioned, we'll be moving forward with a new contract for police in the future. The increase to the general fund budget also includes the costs associated with the draft collective bargaining agreement that's being negotiated with the fire. And related to that draft collective bargaining agreement, as we've mentioned in past Budget and Fiscal Affairs Committee meetings, it represents an increase to budgeted base pay of 10% for FY25. And although the draft CBA represents that 10% increase to budgeted base pay, the increases to the individual ranks and steps is still being worked out with Local 341, and that will be detailed out in the contract once it's finalized for Council's consideration. The FY25 proposed budget also includes $10 million for the assignment and educational pay, like we discussed in the Budget and Fiscal Affairs Committees. Additionally, the proposed budget includes anticipated debt service payment of $30.6 million for debt service, which is related to the proposed firefighter settlement. And as the mayor mentioned, the public safety remains a top priority. Out of the $3 billion general fund budget, $1.7 billion, or 68% of the general fund spending, excluding debt and pay-as-you-go, is dedicated to the public safety. The proposed budget includes funding for 5 police cadet classes and 5 fire cadet classes. And as the mayor mentioned, we haven't forgotten our municipal workers, as those negotiations have now begun and are ongoing on a new contract for the municipal employees that will cover pay increases for those civilian employees in FY25 and beyond. And we are looking, as the mayor mentioned, for efficiencies and cost savings. And as the initial step of those ways to identify those cost savings, we did work with all the individual departments and their directors to talk about and work with them to identify where they could find efficiencies and savings within their budgets. The mayor, I think, has said many times before he doesn't believe in across-the-board cuts. So we wanted to take a more targeted approach that increased efficiencies but did not impact services. And so through those initial efforts that we've worked on in the past couple months, this budget incorporates 11.7 million of departmental general fund budget reductions. But this is just the beginning. So you'll see in the coming weeks, hopefully before the end of this fiscal year, we'll be taking a business-like approach and taking a more comprehensive look across all city departments to identify duplication and waste and find additional ways to realize savings. The goal of this is to help us spend taxpayer dollars more wisely, but continue to improve on the service delivery improvements that the mayor has already mentioned. So as we look for those efficiencies and cost savings, though, we can't discount that we are under strict limitations on our revenues. As the mayor mentioned, this budget doesn't include any additional property tax revenues on top of the Proposition 1 and H cap. And it doesn't include any garbage fees. But we do recognize that there are several revenue constraints that the city of Houston confronts that our peers in Texas don't have to contend with. We have our own locally imposed revenue cap on top of the state cap. We have, as I mentioned, in this proposed budget, no dedicated revenue to support solid waste operations, as other cities do. And we have no general fund support from a city-owned utility, like most of our peers. So I think the mayor mentioned in his speaking notes that all the options are on the table, and that this FY25 budget is building towards the FY26. So while we don't have any of those additional revenues in this proposed budget, that's what we're going to be working through during the fiscal year to identify all those options that are still on the table. Just to speak on the property tax revenue cap, as I mentioned, we have our own local cap in addition to the state cap, and this budget complies with that local cap and the state cap as well. But property tax revenue is the largest funding source for the general fund budget and compromises about 50% of all general fund revenues. Touching on the ARPA utilization, the mayor did cover that already. So that is something that through the previous use of ARPA funding, you'll see tomorrow in my 5-year forecast presentation, that will be a special called BFA meeting. We'll talk about the current fund balance and drawing down that fund balance to close the budgetary gap for this year. As I did mention, the $11.7 million of expenditure savings, but largely the FY25 budget is balanced by making a draw on fund balance. So this proposed budget includes a projection for the ending fund balance of $280 million, which is 11.1% of expenditures less debt service and pay-as-you-go. This still represents $91 million above our minimum of 7.5%. And brings the fund balance back more closely in line with where our fund balance was pre-COVID. The budget does also fund the Budget Stabilization Fund, which represents an additional $25 million in case of disasters. I think that the budget, like the mayor mentioned, FY25 is a pathway to building towards FY26, and we do recognize that we have financial challenges, as the mayor mentioned, the structural budget gap that existed going far back, as he mentioned, several mayors. The recurring revenues and the recurring expenditures don't match, don't align, and that's where we are drawing on fund balance to close the FY25 budgetary gap. And those challenges are something that we're going to confront in fiscal 25 to build towards FY26. Like I mentioned, there'll be a special called Budget and Fiscal Affairs Committee meeting tomorrow to go over the 5-year forecast. And I think that includes my speaking points for today. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Melissa. As discussed during the campaign, and since we've taken office, we wanted to do a review of each of our departments. And we'll have on the council agenda, probably next week or certainly next week, a contract with Ernst & Young to do a citywide efficiency review. And each and every department will be examined. For example, I don't believe every department needs a press person. I don't think every department needs a governmental relations person. If you get to thinking, how many ways are there to contact the City of Houston operations? Maybe we ought to go to just one call center. So just from my experience in being here and working with my colleagues, we can still find efficiencies. Of course, it will not address the shortfall that is, as Melissa repeated, has been present for as long as I can remember with the mayor, certainly in the mid-90s. The revenue cap is significant. When they passed it in Senate Bill 2, the original bill put Houston under the statewide revenue cap, but the relationships between the city and Austin were such, and the thought was that the public passed the Houston version, so that's what we have. So it encourages us to find our efficiencies, our collaborations, and let 25 be a pathway to prepare for 26. I know we can do it. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
For members of the media, can we just remind you to please use this microphone so people at home can hear your question, if you have any? Thank you. Or that one, either microphone.
I think we've done such a good job, Mary, that there's no questions.
Mayor, last week, the new Metro chair talked about the revenue that her agency gets and said that we need to remember that it's not Metro's money, it's not the city's money, it's the taxpayers' money. And that's a prelude to a subject we brought up before. Can we expect a larger contribution or clawback of the 1 cent sales tax to the city to help with these challenging times?
Very fair question. Reinforces the good selection I made in Ms. Brock, that she realizes that most of the Metro funds are raised inside the city of Houston, but she also recognizes that we need a reliable, safe, and clean Metro system. So that's the first priority, to make what the public has a right to depend on in a transit system. But let me reinforce what I said earlier. Everything's on the table. I can remember Bob Lanier addressing city finances as a former chair of Metro. So I'm not proposing that this morning. I think we need to see the other efficiencies and the collaborations that I mentioned. But Ms. Brock's correct. Those Metro funds, like city funds, belong to the public. And I think the public expects us to use them wisely. I know Austin is watching Metro funds. Metro has some very ambitious plans that I think deserve review. If you did all the 3 proposed BRT routes, Metro would be broke. They wouldn't be able to assist us in street repairs, drainage, or other necessities that now they're going to partner with us. The Westheimer announcement the other day was really profound, that they're going to assist the city on one of our major traffic arteries, and there's going to be others, quite frankly. So all I can say is, Greg, it's part of the conversation. It's not going to do any good to have a city without the public safety we deserve, our infrastructure, at the expense of a transit system that's got $1 billion in the bank this morning. Did y'all hear? I said it with a B. So if we don't have a functioning city with quality of life issues addressed, we won't need a transit system. The good news is we're going to need a transit system because we're going to improve quality of life issues. They're already going in the right direction. I pulled in my driveway a couple weeks ago and my neighbors run over and high-fived me because the recycling and the garbage was picked up in the same day. Thank you, solid waste. First time in years. The permitting system is turning permits around. Broken water mains are being addressed quicker. We're getting there, but we're not there. 25 gives us a pathway to get to 26, and I'm going to work with my colleagues on cost savings, looking for additional resources, but everything is on the table to answer your question.
A little bit of a sore subject, but one that I think needs to be addressed as we look for new solutions. Other cities have gone to defined contribution for new hires. Is that on the table in terms of looking at it?
Everything, I just said, everything's on the table. That has not been a part of our discussion thus far. You spent too much time with Bill King.
Mayor, here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, does the budget include a $100 million impact from the recent drainage fund ruling?
I'm sorry, what?
Does the budget include the around $100 million impact from the recent drainage ruling?
No, ma'am. We're actually meeting with those lawyers tomorrow. We don't know the full impact. There's some discussion about a settlement. I have a real tendency to tell you everything I know. It just comes from 50 years in legislature, and transparency's been my best friend. So we're meeting with the drainage fee lawyers. There's options on the table regarding that. But all I can tell you is we're meeting with the lawyers tomorrow. And, relationships matter. Experience matters. So those plaintiffs in that lawsuit, I've worked with probably Bob Jones 40 years. They care about the city of Houston. They care about my administration. So every level of government is going to come together to improve the greatness of our city. Because let me tell you, you and I know how Houston goes is how the state of Texas is going to go. Austin, it understands that. Greg Abbott was a district judge here, and I could go through the list of state leadership. They care about Houston. There's just been no relationship. When you call people names during the heated campaign season, which we all go through, it's hard to sit down and get them to assist you. We've overcome that. Don Buckingham was here a couple of weeks ago. Mike Nichols, one of the best appointments I've made in the housing department, is already working with the Land Commission office, and we're going to see affordable housing that was taken off the table in previous administration. So all I can say is, and I don't give short answers, the bottom line is we're in discussion with the plaintiffs on the drainage fee.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mayor.
How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
Doing what I like to do.
Let me ask you about, you say everything's on the table. You mentioned the parking meter. That was one that you kind of don't see eye to eye with. Can you give specifics for Houstonians when you say everything's on the table?
You've been around. You know them. I mean, we don't have time to list them, but all the above. And I'm not going to do your work for you, but everything that we've discussed, the parking meters was going to interfere with commerce downtown. I think that was more an experiment. Maybe if 3 council members could get something on the agenda. Most of the council members know you come to me with a reasonable proposal that you've vetted and done your research and talked to your colleagues and talked to Central Houston and talked to Houston First and the business community and the workers that need to park in the evening. You got to consider all that, and you can get something on the deal. And we hadn't even talked about governance. Prop A passed. 3 members can, any of those items that you want me to list, any 3 of them can bring me those proposals. And I wouldn't be shocked if they did. These members care about Houston tremendously and are smart. Chairman of Finance, Alcorn, been down the road. So to answer your question is all the above. There may be items that we haven't even had suggestions of. We're going to fix and have a sustainable financial picture. That's the only reason I ran. You know, if things were working well, I would have never gotten a race. I'd be in the state Senate today. But I and Houstonians were concerned. There's way too much spend before I got here. And that's another conversation for another day. All the programs that were spun that now we're finding are not viable, are not financed. So anyway, I'm not giving you a short answer.
That's okay. And you had talked about public safety.
Some of these people have to go to work. That's the reason I'm.
It helps us too with editing. You mentioned,
Oh, you got that down.
yes, 5 HPD cadet classes are coming up. You talked about the importance of public safety. That's 375 officers. We've heard from former Chief Finner that he wanted 2,000 officers. We talked to Acting Chief Satterwhite last week, who told us that he would love to have 2,000 more officers today. That would do so much more for the public if
Sure.
they had that. So this budget calls for 375 cadets if they're full. How do you get to that 2,000 number?
Good question. First, collaboration. And Chief Satterwhite, before he was made acting chief, was making such progress with the 86 agencies in Harris County. I held the first meeting. He took the handoff and has been meeting regularly with everyone that you could name. We'd spend the rest of the day. We have a lot of law enforcement in the city and in Harris County, but they don't talk to each other. Little York on the north side of the streets in Harris County patrolled by deputy sheriffs, south side city of Houston. They don't talk to each other. So we're going to continue that collaboration. And I got questioned during the campaign about bringing the DPS to town. They're here. They've been here for months. They get involved in the chases. We need their helicopters. We need their forensic labs. So yes, we're going to have force multipliers by collaborating with the other agencies. And I was reading an article, believe it or not, about 6 this morning, about Austin maybe going to reserve officers. You know, I'm going to work with the employee groups and see about if the retirees could be brought back online, certainly in the central business district. So there's a lot of opportunities, and I'm going to say it one more time. Experience matters. I've seen most of the issues that we're confronting today. We haven't even talked about the homeless issue, which is a high priority. Mike Nichols, one, is going to make this the most affordable, we used to say large city in America. His goal is any city in America. And we're going to deal with the homeless in a very humane way, compassionate way, and get the homeless out of the public space. He and I met with 12 foundations yesterday. We're going to raise the money to give housing to the homeless. We're going to deal with mental health. We're obviously watching the Supreme Court case where the city could use a little more encouragement of the homeless to seek shelters. You know, I could spend the rest of the morning talking about Haven for Hope, which is my model. I talked about it in the campaign. They don't have a homeless issue in San Antonio. They can't have one because of tourism and the Riverwalk. So they have an overnight location at Haven for Hope. Every night about 800 individuals stay there, no questions asked. Porta cans, showers, food bank feeds them. They're protected. I'm excited. In fact, you're getting me worked up. I'm going to go upstairs and go to work if we can get out of here. And I want everybody to do it. I think everyone here is a public servant, including you, whether you ever run for office or not. And I think someday we're going to be questioned, what did you do with your public service? And that's going to address the budget. It's going to make this city greater than the one we woke up in this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Mayor.
Hey, partner.
I had a question as well about the police and fire budget. I was wondering, you know, besides adding more officers and retaining them. What are some specifics in the police budget that you see that money being allocated towards?
Let me tell you a real serious problem. There again, you can't solve a problem if you don't admit you have one. And I'm the first one in years that's going to really describe how important the forensic lab is. You know, our police are doing a great job arresting folks. Violent offenders are taken to court. But they can't proceed and hold them accountable or find them innocent unless you do a ballistic test. It's running about a year now to get a gun check, a ballistic test. We've got to do better at the forensic lab. It's a critical part. Criminal justice is a system. Any part of it breaks down, it affects the whole system. Obviously, you need personnel on the street. You got to have forensics. You got to hold people accountable. And I'll continue to speak out to our district judges. Some are working hard as they can, and some are not. We've got 900 people on the streets of Houston today charged with murder or capital murder, and have not been to court yet. They're either out on bond or they're fugitives, and no one knows where they are. The most dangerous population in profile in our community. So where we put our public safety money, officers, fire and police. I spoke to 76 police cadets a month ago. It's the second largest ever. The good news is people want to be Houston police officers. Now, getting back to the fire negotiations. I spoke to a fire cadet class that had 31 cadets. Unheard of in the history of Houston Fire Department. Why? Because they didn't know what conditions they were working under, what their contract looked like. They hadn't had one in 8 years. No one talks to them. I actually talked to General Services the other day about looking at some of the deplorable conditions in the fire stations, the ones I saw at Kingwood, plywood covering holes in the floor, mold everywhere. This is unbelievable, but the public needs to know what I ran into when I got down here. General Services asked me for permission to talk to the fire union because the fire union knew where the complaints were. I said, what do you mean? Do you have permission? Well, previous administration wouldn't allow us to talk to the fire union. That's how deteriorated relationships had gotten between the fire and the city administration. We depend on firemen. They save our lives. So to answer your question, it'll be for public safety, not just personnel, forensics, equipment. You ought to talk to both departments about the equipment they have to use. Cars are worn out. Fire trucks stay. I'll take you over to Dart where the fire department fixes their fire trucks. They've fallen apart on the way to a call. Ambulances. We need more ambulances. The public would be shocked to look at the lack of resources and distribution of ambulances across this city. What am I going to do? Obviously, we're going to address it in the budget, but we're going to go to the private sector. There are corporations across Houston said they've never been asked to partner with the city of Houston. I can start naming them that will buy us an ambulance. Now, we might have to put their name on the side of it, but we're going to improve public safety, and we're going to have a budget that works.
Just to follow up on that, there's also as I'm sure you're aware, a very dire situation at the county jail right now. So as you address public safety and all these things, have there been conversations with the county about what's going on in the jail?
You know, I'm the mayor, but I routinely talk about, I was talking to the Metropolitan Organization yesterday, and they wanted to talk about a variety of topics. And after about 45 minutes, I looked at them, people I've worked with for years, good public servants. I said, I can't believe y'all haven't brought up the county jail. 10,000 people, one of the most dangerous locations in our community, inside the jail. Dangerous to the defendants, dangerous to the correction officers. At a cost of millions of dollars, we've got Harris County residents, Houston residents, in Louisiana this morning, away from their family and their defense counsel. Then you got another large group in Post, Texas, outside of Lubbock. There's no diversity in Post, Texas, very little. I spent 24 Christmases there when I was married. It's a beautiful group of people, but you wouldn't want to spend a whole lot of time in one of their jails. So, one, thank you for bringing that up. As former chairman of criminal justice, I know how broken the Harris County criminal justice system is, certainly with how they treat defendants and correction officers at a cost of millions of dollars. Let me tell you what, you ask the officials, do they ever get to talk to their family, their children? You know, family is one of the best tools you use to get someone to turn their lives around. Oh yeah, we allow them to Zoom. Well, try being in Post, Texas, and being from 5th Ward, Texas, and do something that the correction officer doesn't like. You're not going to get a Zoom. That's the real world, unfortunately. And we got to speak out on it. And I'm the mayor, but I'm going to speak out wherever people are being abused, and it compromises public safety. Unfortunately, it's a powder keg in a Harris County jail. To my commissioner friends, go to work on your jail. And I'm not talking about building another one. Get people to court, hold them accountable, find them innocent. If they're repeat violent offenders, I've had a gun in my face. Somebody puts a gun in your face, that's the reason we have TDCJ. And I'm getting away from city government, but I care about Houstonians. It's my responsibility to protect them. And as long as you got a jail, let me tell you another one, I'll help you reporters if you want to cover something. 12 o'clock tonight, the back door, the garage door on San Jacinto is raised. Defendants are released. Some have family, some have a lawyer, most have no one. Turn loose at midnight because they get credit for the next day. That's what overcrowding does to you. You make poor decisions, easy, sloppy, dangerous decisions. So I have raised Cain for years, and I'll keep talking as the mayor. Good Lord, let at least the sun come up. But they let them out at midnight, nowhere to go, no money. They go then get on a metro train to get out of the elements. Then they're arrested for being a vagrant. So welcome to the criminal justice system. So thank you for raising that. I would challenge the press, go do a story that matters in real lives. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more follow-up, if that's cool, and I'm done.
That's okay.
I wanted to ask you about something completely different, and your partnerships in Austin that
Sure.
you talked about. Does that include asking Governor Greg Abbott for some of the surplus money, or how does that?
I want to ask anybody that has any influence in Austin, and I'll be doing it myself. You want to talk about efficiencies? Houston lobby team don't need 17 outside lobbyists. Can you imagine that? Yeah, I can talk to Greg Abbott. He and I disagree on a lot of things, but I know he cares about Houston. He wants Houston to be a great city. He's very involved in the development of the Med Center and TM3. So yes, he understands the needs of the city, and we have a good working relationship. And I'll get after them when they're wrong. I did it on the Senate floor, but there's a time to come together and work things out. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've asked some really good questions.
Mayor, one last question.
Yes.
Do you have the votes for the firefighter deal for ratification on
We haven't
council?
polled, and it's still a work in process. So, I don't think we've seen the final print, but we're getting close to that time.
Would you think this budget, which has no tax increase and no layoffs, would help in your argument?
We'll do what?
Would help in your argument or lobbying council to support
I'm
the
not going to
deal?
speak for council members. I respect them. They're very diverse. They're going to represent their district. They're at large, play a vital role. So let's just go forward. In fact, I would suggest let's go to work. Thank you.
Got time for one more? No?
Sure.
Just wondering, good morning, Mayor, if you can just kind of expand on reaching the conclusion to not include garbage fees in this budget, and we'll.
Okay, it's real clear.
For
I've said
26.
everything's on the table. Obviously, garbage fee is being kicked around here. There could be support on it for council, but we have a budget that's going toward 26. See, that wouldn't alone solve our problem. We've got to do all the above on the table to be considered. So all I can say is it's a working process. The good news is we have a good budget for 2025, but now we need to go to work. Thank y'all.